Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and this is how to make a simple Notepad app in Unity, and welcome to episode 2. So in this episode we are going to take a look at some buttons, which is more UI. We're going to take a look at some fonts and how we can use them, and we'll also look at an input box, which is going to be our actual Notepad itself. So firstly, let's go to Game Object, UI, and let's choose Button. You'll notice this comes into the canvas much in the same way as the original text that we did last episode did. And again, it's a case of everything in this is going to be UI based, so everything is likely to be under the canvas. Now, we're going to select over here, anchor, bottom right. And the reason we actually use the anchoring position is because every screen has a different size, it has a different resolution, they're not all the same. So having these anchor points ensures that whenever we start the app on whatever mobile device we have, it always makes sure that that object is in that same position. So if we move this button now down here to the bottom right, because it's anchored to the bottom right, it will always display there in that exact same position, no matter what the size of the screen. So attached to the button is a text object, and this text object is pretty much the same as what we had up here. It's the same sort of function. So we can type up here in the text section the name of this button, and this button is going to be a clear button, so we want to erase everything that is within the notepad itself. So clear. It's up to you whether you want this to be capitalized, lowercase. It's your app, it's not my app. I just show you the mechanics on how to do it. I'm going to have the font style as bold, because why not? And I'm going to keep the font size as 14, I think, and it's up to you whether you want to align, change color. Again, it's your app. So the button itself has a couple of different things. The main one we're going to look at, in this episode at least, is this one, the button script. This one we'll deal with in the next episode because I got something cool for that one. So it's up to you what you want to have as your normal color. Normal color is the way the button is represented now. In other words, it's white. The highlighted color is slightly darker, and what it means is when you hover your mouse over it, it will change color when in play mode. So if we press play and hover over, we can see maybe it changes ever so slightly. But while still in play mode, if we go over here to a highlighted color and select, let's say, red, we can hover over it and it will turn red. However, if we stop the game mode now, it will revert to its original color. The reason being is that we cannot make changes whilst in play mode. It just doesn't let you. All you need to do is stop and then make the changes. So just be mindful that if you make any changes in play mode, you'll have to redo them when you exit. So let's change our highlighted color to maybe a bit of a blue color. And if we press play, we can see, nice. Now the great thing about buttons in Unity is they're kind of already pre-programmed to work on either PC or touch screens. We don't need any extra programming to make these buttons work, and that is so much help, trust me. So as it stands now, if we were to put this onto an Android device or an Apple device, this button would work. You'd be able to touch this button and it would change color. Well, according to this anyway, to the pressed color, which is what I want to move on to next. It depends what you want to have as your pressed color. I'm going to leave it as it is, a kind of a grey color, but not too dark. And you'll see when we press play, you can see it goes to that grey color, and that's fine. So by standard, it has Arial as the font, which we can see here in the text. So I'm going to create a new folder down here in my project window, and I'm going to call it fonts. So everything you create down here in the window can easily be done by right-clicking, and you have a nice menu here. Create here has plenty of things to choose from, and we'll go into a couple of them as time goes along, but they're not too important right now. So if we go into our fonts folder, I'm going to drag and drop this font into Unity. Now, I'm not going to distribute this font, but you can take a look at it at Google if you want to. Just Google Expressway font, and you should be able to find it. So what I've done here is I've imported an object or an item which can be used as an asset, and this can apply for fonts, textures, videos, even scripts if you so need to, but pretty much anything you drag and drop can be an asset. But one thing to be careful of, if the asset is in a zipped folder, you'll need to unzip it before you can drag and drop into Unity. Now, it's as simple as just dragging and dropping this onto here, and that's how you change the font. There we go. You can also change the font by clicking this little radius button here and selecting the font you wish. So same again with the note title. Let's have that drag and drop. And I'm going to change it to Jimmy's Notepad. I'm just going to bring it up slightly to about there. So next thing we're going to look at is the input field. And the input field, like I say, is the main notepad of the app. So if we go to Game Object, go to UI, and down here, Input Field. So by default, it'll just give you this little text box. And what we want to do is select the anchoring position and stretch right there. What this does is it makes sure that, again, no matter what size of the screen, it always looks the same on any device. So let's now move this into the position we want to see it. So let's move it up to about here. The reason I've not got it right to the top is because I want a couple of buttons up here, maybe a line of text just for the app. And then I'm going to drag it to about here. So now it looks pretty decent. It actually looks like a notepad that you would expect to see on a phone or something. So underneath input field, we have two things. We have a placeholder and text. And obviously the input field also has a couple of components. The text, this is important. We don't need to worry about this just for now, but the placeholder is where you see here, enter text. It's entirely up to you if you want to keep this placeholder or not. If we disable it up here using this little tick, it will disappear. If we keep it, you'll see it there. However, when we press play and we start typing, it does disappear, so we don't need to worry about it. Again, it's your app. It's up to you whether you want to have this there or not. I'm going to leave it there for now, but chances are I may remove it at some point. The main thing we have to note with this input field is over here in the inspector panel, if we scroll down to here where we have line type, we need to change that to multi-line new line. The reason being is that by default it's only one line, and a notepad isn't one line, is it? So we can type, hit return or enter, and then we go to the next line. Easy. So you can already see how this app is coming together to be multi-line, and this works the same way as pretty much any other UI object that we have. You don't necessarily have to have this white. You could change it to black if you wanted to and have the text as white. Maybe we set up some options for that. Who knows? It just depends how you want your app to be. Again, I cannot stress enough, it is your app, not my app. This is you making this. I'm showing you how to do it. And if you wanted to, you could select a couple of different options, whether you want it single line or not. It's entirely up to you. I would recommend at least going through some of these options to maybe kind of get yourself familiar with things. It's, it's good to actually play around, and don't worry about ever going wrong with Unity. If you do something wrong, you can always hold Control, press Z to undo it. It's easy as that. So by default, you could have some text here, but it's probably not worth it because, well, that's just the way it is, really. So I'm going to save my scene, hold Control, press S to save. So next episode, guys, what we're going to take a look at is we're going to get into some C# coding. Now, some people do find C# coding a little tricky. However, we don't need to be that complex with how we code in this tutorial. I will show you everything you need. So we'll be dealing with things like namespace and variables. If you've heard of them before, that's fine. If not, I will explain everything you need to know. And what else I want to look at is actually making these buttons look a little more appealing, because as they stand right now, they're a little bit plain and boring. They may serve a decent purpose, but they're not how I want them to look in the end. So we're going to make them look a little bit fancier, not just colourful. So it's all about you now. And what I would recommend you do before the next episode is get an image in your head of how you want your app to look. So I'm going to quickly brief you guys now on how I am going to make this app look. I'm going to have this clear button here. I'm going to have a save button here. I may have an options button here. I haven't quite decided yet. And up here, I'm going to have a little X to close the app, which means that I guess I could probably bring this notepad up a little more, maybe to about there. And over this side, I'm going to have a little option which says saved or not saved, just so as it gives us a bit more insight. And also we're going to have different ways of coding problems, i.e. if we're exiting and not saving. So, as I say, maybe you should get a pen and paper, pencil paper, whatever you want, and you should draw how you want your app to look, maybe in this perspective. If you want it portrait, that's fine. If you want it landscape, that's fine. But I'm going to go for portrait. So, guys, until that next episode, when we do that coding, and for those of you who are a little worried, please don't worry. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you very much for watching.